G'day mate, 40 here. Takes a great deal of arrogance to do this. Walk down the street and proclaim my views on politics, God, culture, religion, ethics, the personal, the political, the global, the national. Now the rains are coming down. Gotta bloody dodge my way through alarms, through the rain, through the ups and downs, the turbulence of my emotions. Just thinking about how Jordan Peterson, he wanted to buy a church and so that he could preach in it. People like Jordan and me, we're not normal people. I had a bunch of people. It's amusing. Like I've had more than a dozen people tell me, "Oh, you should start your own synagogue," and I'd be lying if I said that. It never crossed my mind. Of course, it's the most ridiculous thing in the world, but the ego fulfillment of me holding forth each week on the weekly Torah portion, and the pressing issues that confront us as Jews in this increasingly degenerate America. In my own head, I would have been amazing. I would have been awesome. I would have been a star. I would have been saving the West, bro. I could have been saving Western civilization. I could have been fighting for good against evil, holding forth in front of the ark with the sacred Torah scrolls inside. So there's a time and a place for arrogance, because without arrogance, without my narcissistic desires, all right, I would not be making these videos or so many of these videos. And if there is any merit to what I'm doing, right, the merit entirely depends upon me experiencing at least a temporary sense of aggrandizement, arrogance, entitlement, and hey, look at me, hey, listen to me, I've got something valuable to say. Which means that's not a normal, healthy person. Right? There may be some connection to the amount of live streaming I do. Right? I think the amount of live streaming I do is inversely proportionate to my mental health. Right? I think it's a coincidence that I'm 58 years of age and a bachelor, and that I've been obsessively blogging and vlogging since 1997. Right? This is not normal, probably not healthy. Creating my own virtual world where I can be the star to solve my wounds from my failures in the real world. So people who do this, all right, we're not normal people, right? There's something deeply twisted, something needy, and I was basically in tears through most of my stream on Sunday, right? And that's not normal. To be holding forth on a live stream for 4 hours, talking about God, politics, religion, culture, the latest news, with my latest views, and be fighting back tears and crumbling into a little ball when I hear a lad sing the theme song to Cinema Paradiso. So wackos like Jordan Peterson and me, we both project this tremendous amount of entitlement, arrogance, huge regard for our own opinions, a mesmerizing cult leader-like level of certainty in the truth and goodness of what we're saying, right? Combined with, oh, I'm so fragile, you have to protect me, I'm in tears, I'm feeling sad, these unjust people are attacking me, but I'm fighting for you against the elites. Right? I'm on your side, the little guy. I'm taking on the institutions that are holding you down. Right? That's how the live streamer rolls, man. He alternates between arrogance and tears, between entitlement and such fragility it can only be taken away with the super chat. Okay, let's go to the chat. Hello. Breathe, dude. You're talking nonsense. Yes, I am. Thank you for tuning into my nonsense. Right, I'm here to be a representative guru, live streamer, podcaster, pundit, entitled, know-it-all, and then alternate that with I'm broken, I'm fragile, I'm a mess, I'm a wreck, my life isn't working. You need to save me, you need to protect me, you need to support me, you need to cover for me, you need to fight for me, you need to join my club, my band, my gang, and go out and do warfare against my enemies. You need to protect me because I'm so fragile, and you need to listen to me because I'm so entitled, I'm so brilliant, I'm so wise, right? That's what the typical pundit, guru, preacher, podcaster alternates between those two states. So I was just thinking about the American Civil War, as one does, and Abraham Lincoln never declared war on the Confederate States because that would have implied that they were a separate entity aside from the Union, and it would have created all sorts of hassles. So he did effectively declare war on the Confederate States, but he did not officially declare war. There was no declaration of war from Congress supporting Abraham Lincoln's war against the Confederate States, because the bigger an entity that you're dealing with, the United States government, even in 1860, was still pretty big, right? The more hoops you have to jump through, the more boxes you have to check, and the more of a difference there's going to be between what you're trying to do and what you can say that you're doing. And so what's so weird, unusual, breathtaking, gobsmacking, entertaining, hilarious, distressing, frightening, thrilling, depending on your hero system, about Donald Trump is that he doesn't really abide by everything that we expect from a president of the United States. So I find it hilarious, but I understand. I have empathy for those people who are horrified, frightened, distressed, disconsolate, out of their minds, enraged. Right, so that's one approach. Or on the other approach is, this is the best, this is the greatest, this is going to save us, this is going to turn the ship around, we're making America great again, blah, blah, blah. Right, so it all depends on your hero system. But it's so unusual because normally what a head of state has to say is going to be significantly different from what he has to do, because to move a big thing like a country around, right, you have to jump through various hoops, and you usually can't fully declare what you're really doing. And so Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, for example, he has had to constantly deceive both the United States and his right-wing cabinet allies and the Israeli people, right, because he was facing just impossible choices. So what's interesting, and John Mearsheimer established this, is that politicians don't lie to citizens of other nations because there's no point. Right? If you're Canadian, you have no incentive, no reason to believe Donald Trump. Right? Politicians overwhelmingly save their lives for their own people. So there is a terrific song in Judaism at the time of the Passover, and we've got Passover coming up in about a month, and it's called Dayenu, and it means it would have been enough. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. So it says, it would have been enough if God had just taken us out of Egypt, but then he took us out of Egypt and he split the sea, and it would have been enough if God had just split the sea, but he took us out of Egypt and Dayenu, and he split the sea, Dayenu, and then he covered up our enemies in the sea, Dayenu, and he provided food and water for us, and he led us through the desert for 40 years, Dayenu, and then led us to the promised land, Dayenu. It all would have been enough if he'd just done this one thing. And so with Donald Trump, I just feel, this is my hero system. I have no desire to change your mind on this, but somebody on the right, I just feel Dayenu, it would have been enough if Donald Trump had just stopped illegal immigration to the extent that he has. Right? We have had a dramatic reduction in illegal immigration since Donald Trump took office, so much so now that there are migrant flows through Mexico in Central America that are not coming north, but are turning around and going south. People are going back to Venezuela, right? People are going back to other Latin American countries. They've given up on coming to the United States with Donald Trump in power and Dayenu, and there are all these illegal immigrants in the United States who also say they support Trump, and they say things would have been fine if only the Venezuelan gangs hadn't come over and given the rest of us illegal immigrants a bad name. But I just from a state of such gratitude. Dayenu, it would have been enough if Donald Trump had just crushed illegal immigration. But Dayenu, he didn't just crush illegal immigration, he also crushed affirmative action. Dayenu, he also crushed diversity, equity, inclusion. Dayenu, he's got all these major law firms just scared to death of him, which is hilarious. Dayenu, it would have been enough if he'd just gotten big law scared to death of him, afraid to cross him. That's hilarious. So law firms, by their nature of lawyers, are the most risk-averse institutions in the United States. And so when you get law firms to make changes, such as stop pushing DEI or stop providing pro bono aid to various liberal causes, right? That has huge ripple effects. Stephen Miller's foundation went after law firms first because they're so incredibly influential, because they're so incredibly risk-averse. They don't want to be sued. They don't want trouble. They just want to provide professional services and charge people an arm and a leg for their professional services. All right, lawyers by nature are just super risk-averse, and by going after them, it has huge downstream effects. And it's hilarious that big law, right, is now afraid of crossing Donald Trump. It's hilarious that all these liberals, all these billionaires, right, funders of liberal left causes, are now afraid to publicly fund liberal left causes like the Democratic Party because they don't want to get on the wrong side of Donald Trump. Like, even if you're opposed to this, you got to see the humor in it, right? Now, all these virtually no college presidents are speaking out against the president, which is hilarious because the college presidents and universities are overwhelmingly on the left and they loathe Donald Trump, but they're afraid to speak out and cross him. Dayenu, it would have been enough. It is so funny how he's gotten all these powerful institutions and people afraid. Right? It's amusing. Right now, liberals have the same fears that conservatives have operated with for decades. Right? Conservatives are far more reluctant than liberals to speak out on political issues in social settings, in public, at work, because it's really devastating to be tarred with the label racist, and most conservatives don't have a good rejoinder, and so rather than take the risk of being called a racist, they just keep quiet. And now liberals starting to experience the same ostracism, the same fear that conservatives have dealt with for decades. Right now, liberals don't want to be cancelled. It's so funny seeing all these CEOs, big tech, bending the knee to Donald Trump. So even if you're opposed to it, right, you got to see the humor in it. I mean, Dayenu, it would have been enough if he just intimidated college presidents, university presidents, right, the elite university presidents. But not just that, he has intimidated CEOs. He's intimidated the billionaire funders of the left. Right? Very few people are willing to speak out against him right now. It's hilarious. I mean, it would have been enough for me if Donald Trump, at his big congressional speech, if all he'd said was, we know that Pocahontas wants this, right? For me, that would have been enough, right? Just that one remark. So, yeah. That was golden. I never thought I'd hear a president of the United States in a major congressional address say, well, Pocahontas wants this with regard to another 5 years of war in Ukraine. And the president, I 100% agree with him that every day that this Russia-Ukraine war goes on, it astronomically increases the risks of World War III. So whatever happens to Ukraine doesn't matter for American interests, but having a war with Russia in Ukraine does matter because it dramatically increases the odds of a nuclear war, World War III. And Annie Jacobson's just out with a new book on a nuclear war scenario. So North Korea fires off a ICBM that takes out the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and then a North Korean submarine fires off a nuke that hits the one nuclear reactor power plant in California, the San Diablo plant near Big Sur. And just the devastating effect of that. So if America responds by flattening North Korea, our ICBMs have to travel over Russia. Russia's air defenses aren't that exact. So as we send our ICBMs to crush North Korea in retaliation, then Russia is going to unload their nuclear arsenal at us because they don't know that our ICBMs traveling over Russia are not intended for Russia. And then as we crush North Korea, right, radiation will inevitably kill people in China, which the Chinese will inevitably understand as an act of war. And they'll then unload their nuclear arsenal on the United States, and we'll respond. And that will be the end of life as we know it on this planet. And every day that we have a war in Ukraine, right, we increase the odds of this horrific event happening. So I've done some reading about Trump's tariffs plan, and I'm not a fan, but really who cares about what I think about tariffs? I am just taken aback, astounded, and I even have some respect that Trump apparently is willing to endure short-term pain for the economy if he can make fundamental changes in the American economy so that we manufacture more, etc. So I think the chaos is terrible. I'm not thrilled that we seem to be heading into a recession. I don't like the way that Trump bullies our neighbors. But maybe I'm going to say that there's a good chance that there's some wisdom in his madness, and I respect that he's willing to endure so much short-term pain to try to completely reorient the American economy. And he didn't talk about, we're going to have a recession. And he didn't say this. But now he says, hey, we may have a recession. Like, people's 401ks are crashing. The stock market's down 10% in the last, since the inauguration. I'm kind of impressed by how much pain he's willing to endure. It's just... It's incredible how he was prepared to put on 50% tariffs against Canada today, against Canadian steel and lumber, and then he reversed himself today. And now the one of the Canadian premiers threatened to cut off power to a great deal of the northern United States, I think from Ontario. I mean, it's both horrifying and hilarious. I wonder if I was married and I had kids, I probably couldn't afford to be this nihilistic and just see the humor in it. But I noticed Colin Liddell is not impressed by Donald Trump, and he says Elon Musk is going to start nuking millions of accounts that are not on board with MAGA. And so Colin Liddell has led the movement to exit X and go over to Blue Sky. So Colin Liddell is not at all impressed by Trump, and one of Colin's big concerns is Russian dark influence in the West, particularly online. Colin just wrote a very nasty article about Jim Goad, who is or has been a great writer, and apparently is suffering terrible health issues now, like life-threatening health issues. He's stopped writing, stopped speaking publicly, seems to have cancer and heart disease from medical records that he's posted online, and Jim Goad has stated publicly that he's not long for this world. Bro, do you see that guy looking at you? Right, there may be guys looking at me, bro, but what's most important is, how do I look at me? Right? Fine, he's looking at me, but how do I look at me? How do I think about me?